And action. Yolanda had a question about lifestyle change, specifically for blood pressure lowering. And I think it's a common theme that I usually talk about in most of my videos is you have to change around nutrition, you have to change around activity, and you have to incorporate some form of a mindful practice. There's also maximizing on sleep and recovery in addition to having some sense of social belonging. But I think the first three are easy to kind of instill in anybody. In fact, nutrition is the easiest because you can find a ton of information out there, whether it's on YouTube or you go to the library or go to Barnes & Noble, pick up a book in that medical wellness area. Whatever it is, nutrition is also confusing because there are just so many diets that are out there. As far as which diet works, you know what? As long as I approve it and we don't have any real bad medical diseases found on blood testing, I think anything that's sustainable is where I'd go. So it also has to be affordable, it has to be easy to construct, and it cannot be dangerous. That's why it has to be approved by your doctor, me. So I think if you look under what Dan Buettner found as far as the longest survived cultures in the world, making it to 100, usually it was a whole food, mostly plant-based diet. Now, no, it doesn't mean you have to switch over to being a vegetarian or vegan. I would suggest it, but I would also say we can't step off the curve too fast. Just cutting out to 800 calories a day isn't going to be the answer. Nobody can sustain that. If you want to just jumpstart your weight loss, that's fine to include something of a crazy diet. But again, you have to, once you incorporate or commit to that crazy diet, you got to be accountable to somebody. It's because it's hard to maintain a strict diet without having somebody else involved. You also have to start planning for the next stage because this one's going to sooner or later end, and you can't just drop off and say, okay, I'll figure it out then. You have to have what the next step is all mapped out. So it's really important. Whenever I have anybody that tries to change over the course of 12 weeks, I always say you got to plan this thing out because you just, without effort, you'll efficiently go through the next stage and the next stage and the next stage. Before you know it, you're rocking and you're into the next 12 weeks or the next 3 months. And then you're into the first year of success. And then you're rock solid because you've adapted it as part of an engram. When the brain and the habit becomes easy to assume or easy to carry on, it's effortless. No questions. In fact, you want to do that. When it's first being adopted, it's like, I don't like this, it's too tight, let's see, it's too strict, I don't like this taste, I don't have enough money. There's always a reason until you can get the benefits. And sometimes it's not even the benefits, it's just ritualistic. The body likes to have, and the mind likes to have ritual. And when the ritual is very adapted, you can follow it without even thinking and during times of weakness. So that's why it has to become 12 weeks. I think if you make something ritualistic and you keep on doing it, even if you blindly follow something, it'll be easy to sustain. Now, as far as whether that's healthy or not, it depends. So the DASH diet is typically what has been studied by Western medicine, and it's safe. And it's also free to get some information. So if you check out my video, DrRic question DASH diet, D-A-S-H, you'll see what I came up with for a patient of mine. But that'd be the first thing to do, or at least consider. Again, you can get on NIH's website, National Institute of Health, and put in DASH, and it'll come up with a whole bunch of stuff for you, free for the public. And it's our taxes that are generating this information. So that's obvious. There's also a lot of information on the paleo, the Pritikin, the Atkins. Somebody just mentioned to me today about the cruise diet, a kind of spin-off or a hybrid from the Atkins. There's a lot of them out there. Blood type, Mediterranean, so it doesn't matter which one, just go in prepared. Do enough research before you commit to the first day of your new diet, because the same time that you start this nutrition change, again, you have to have the next step planned, but the same day you start nutrition change, you should also be starting an activity routine. Now, in Yolanda's case, if she does a ton of walking in her job, that's okay. But that doesn't count. God bless you for doing all that walking. That does not count as activity for weight loss and activity for lifestyle change. That's your job. And there's a sense of urgency when you do that kind of activity. Power walking to try to get calories burned, you'll never catch up with the amount of average American food that goes in. So if you're thinking you're going to use and burn up a lot of calories and kind of truncate the amount of calories going in, you'll never be able to catch up. For example, 3 beers or 3 alcoholic drinks, 2 donuts, 1 hamburger, all that stuff, depending on the hamburger, but all that stuff takes about an hour each, an hour of cardio to burn off what you just ate. So if you keep on using exercise to burn off the food that you're craving, you'll never catch up. It's very rare you'll be able to do that. Even marathoners have a problem, and that's 26.2 miles burning off a lot until they get competitive, and then they lose their appetite, and then they get super really skinny. But that's different. So I would use activity as an adjunct to the nutrition to kind of get you active. Again, if you work a UPS job, if you work construction, that's great for you, but the exercise has to be outside that. It has to be a time period when the mind will take advantage of doing something that's not work, not stress related. Even though if you don't have stress, it's still work. You have a deadline. I just have to have you lock up the door, start walking, turn around, walk back, you're done. 15 to 20 minutes. And it doesn't seem like much, right? But you lower all the stress hormones when you do that. When you're doing that and you're going out and power walking, well, you could have done that at work, and you're not really getting into the groove of calming down the mind. So again, you need activity. Trying to just always do some form of high aggressive activity is not necessarily the answer. I mean, has it been working? I would usually sprinkle. Here's a cool thing about designing lifestyle change. I'd usually sprinkle into the lifestyle change what you're not doing. So if you're always gung-ho and you're not losing weight, I'd add slow and steady activity. Now, if you're not doing anything gung-ho and you're slow and steady, then I'd sprinkle in aggressive activity. So it's kind of the old way of, in Ayurveda, or the ancient healing tradition of India, there's doshas that we kind of pigeonhole everybody into. And if the dosha, if you are balanced, you're on fire. If you're off balance, depending on where your dosha, where your characteristics fall, it's easy to kind of come up with a treatment plan for that. And this is like 2,500 to 5,000 years old. It works. It still works. It worked before. It still works now. There's actually Ayurvedic practitioners, just like traditional Chinese medicine. This is ancient healing, but the old school ways of kind of balancing out imbalance works. What do we do with science? It's only been about 200, going on 300 years. We think that we can compare to the ancient healing traditions, and we're not there yet. I mean, no question, science is cool, but science is always evolving. And the paradigms that we used before, sometimes we take the new paradigm because of new information and we refute everything that was thought of as being stable before. That's science. It's always changing. But what do we do with science is we take the evidence. We take the history of what was shown in the past. And that's all traditional stuff. 5,000 years old. So what does it say? Again, the oldest cultures in the world have been practicing this way for centuries. And it usually comes down to a whole food, mostly plant-based diet. A lot of walking, social belonging, and a good sense of family or sleep. Now all that stuff, there's different ways that different parts of the world will express it, but what do we do in America? We push the paradigm, we're in a hurry all the time, we eat junk food, we say this is for me, I have to do this because I deserve it, compensatory behavior, not good. So we have to sometimes continue with the jobs that we have here, but shake off that idea about how to do it from before, change the paradigm, and it might work this time. Finally, so the activity should be something different, but it should be 3 to 5 days a week. And if it's 3 to 5 days a week, but it's something different than before, cool, as long as we have the next step also planned. And maybe we'll get to a coach of some sort, maybe you won't, but it's always worth it to start planning, start keeping the blinders open so that if something comes your way, you'll maybe consider it, or take that as maybe part of your lifestyle change now. The final thing is always going to be some form of mindful practice. Mindfulness does not have to be in the form of meditation, although I think it works for a lot of people because it calms down the stress response, which we're not taught. The only mindfulness that I think we are taught in American school systems is when you sit in front of the principal's office on that rickety old chair in the hallway, kind of just reflecting, or you sit in the corner just reflecting on your punishment, reflecting on what you did. If those of you who are Catholic, you go to confessional, and it's kind of nerve-wracking. You're in there sitting and kneeling on that thing. Well, I don't know how they do it now. I think it's just sitting, but you kneel on that thing before, and it's all dark, and you hear this booming voice on the other side of this curtain say, what have you done? Or what is, come to me for repentance. I forget what the thing is, but you tell the priest your sins, and then you're being given some absolution by a priest with the authority of God, and you're clean and free to do more damage. But that's not the way it goes. So the objective is always to be accountable for what you did before. Mindfulness usually has some form of reflection, and we don't have time to do that. Sometimes the only reflection we have is when somebody else spites you, and then you think bad upon yourself, and that's just more stress. So getting into that activity where you're slowing down, that's always a form of mindfulness. Nature walking. See my videos on DrRic tutorial, nature therapy. Having a yoga class and listening in and trying to get the relaxation response. Taking a yoga class by itself is yoga. It's activity, but it might not be mindfulness. It depends on which class you take. Having some local places like the Theosophical Society, or there are some Tai Chi and yoga institutes or schools that do offer Sunday free practice. But investigate, see what's available. $5 for an experimented attempt wouldn't be bad. If you can get a psychologist to teach you mindful practice, that would be good too. And sometimes it's covered by insurance if you can find a good psychologist. I like Dr. Nicole Parmalee, but there's also, if you check on Psychology Today, you can see the website and get a picture of the psychologist, you get a bio, and if I see mindfulness practice or EMDR or CBT as part of what their description is, that's the person I would go to, Psychology Today, or word of mouth. So those are the three things I would do. There's other ways to kind of put the recipe together to have the dish at the end, but the ultimate dish is going to be controlling the disease process that we have given you, which is high blood pressure. Other people have cholesterol, weight issues, prediabetes, maybe depression. So all those things have to be controlled. And the next thing is to get better than you were before. The final thing is to have it sustainable and kind of revamp it in case it gets boring. I guess the final thing really is to send the elevator back down and give that same kind of devotion to other people and inspire them, but we're not there yet. So that is it in a nutshell. I would always say that if it doesn't work the first time, then we have to redesign it, or the coaches that you pick to be on your team have to redesign it. And that's why it's important to have coaches for accountability, because we will fail. Somewhere you're going to hit the road, you're going to find a time of weakness, and it's good not to be too involved in the suffering part of the guilt part of that and just move on. We're allowed to make mistakes. We have to move on. We have to find some form of contemplative practice, exercise, activity, and nutrition that's sustainable. But if we don't at least try or attempt and then fail and attempt again, we're never going to get anywhere. Whether it's alcohol, tobacco, weight loss, whatever it is, lifestyle change, it just is a matter of keeping on, chipping away, allowing us to play with this, and then seeing what happens.